Right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Green Social Prescribing webinar. My name's Sarah Marrison. I'm the NASP Thriving Communities Regional Lead for the North Eastern Yorkshire, and I'm also Social Prescribing Engagement Manager at VONNE. We have some fantastic speakers lined up for you today to showcase some of the work that's happening across the North Eastern Yorkshire around green social prescribing, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. There'll be some interesting connections, interactions. If we could just move on to the housekeeping slide, please, Tom. So if you could just stay muted unless you're speaking. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, if you would like to keep your camera on, if you're happy to be recorded, then great. If not, pop it off. It says raise a hand to ask a question, but we would ask, if possible, that if you have a question, if you could either pop it in the chat or kind of make a note of it. We'll be doing Q&A for all of the speakers kind of all together at the end rather than individually, just to make sure everyone gets a chance to do their presentation with the full amount of time. Feel free to use emojis and respond, and also if you would like to use the chat to introduce yourself, that might be great for connections as well. And if you want, you can change your name, on-screen name, to your organisation, so that you can, again, for sort of sharing and networking purposes. So I'm just going to admit a couple more people that are waiting in the waiting room, and hopefully we can move on to our first speaker, please. If you can just move the presentation on, Tom. Oh, sorry, I forgot. We have a programme for today. This is just to refer to, because we will share the slides afterwards as well, just in case you're unable to remember who, in case you wanted to speak to people. We have 3 speakers, all their details are on there, but we're also lucky to have lots of colleagues with us today who are around, who have lots of knowledge in this field and are available to chat at the end, be part of any question and answer sessions, and those are all listed as part of the kind of wider panel on this programme. Right, brilliant. I am going to ask if we can have our first speaker, please, and that is Sam Marie. Sam, if you would like to take over. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. So hi, everyone. So my name is Sam, and I work for Groundwork actually over in the Northwest, so Groundwork Cheshire, Lancashire and Merseyside. But in my role, I work across the whole of the north of England, so quite a big geographical patch. So just a quick background to Groundwork if you don't know us already. So Groundwork are a federation of charities that work across England and Wales to support communities to fight poverty, whilst also educating about and improving their local environment. So in Yorkshire and the North East, we actually have 3 Groundwork trusts. So we have Groundwork Yorkshire, Groundwork South and North Tyneside, and Groundwork North East and Cumbria. So these 3 trusts, alongside Groundwork Trusts in the Northwest, have come together in a new 18-month project to create a new northern network, a network that's designed to connect, empower and enhance the work of green organisations across the whole of the north. And today I'm here just to talk to you a bit about it and tell you how you can get involved. So on this slide you can see the mission statement of the network. So we developed that in consultation with people across the north, and we did our consultation over the last 4 or 5 months. And you can see that there are some areas below where we're going to be focusing some of our activity in, but we know that there are more areas to work with, and that's another reason why I want to talk to people across this wide geography, northeast and Yorkshire, and see how you can get involved as well. So next slide, please. So I thought you may have a few questions about the network. So on this slide, let's give it, hopefully it will give some background as to what we hope to do and how we got there. So I'm not going to read through all the writing, but the slides are going to go around as well, and you can sort of see how we managed to get to this stage. So it is a virtual and physical network. Because it is such a wide geography, we have to do some things virtually, and there will be a website and a green map and a space where people can add things and talk to people about what they do. But the physical network is rooted around green community hubs, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a later part of the presentation. And as I said in the previous slide, Groundwork are supporting the development of some of these, and in Yorkshire, the North East, there are 2. So one in Bradford and one in Bolton. But we're also looking for groups that are already working in this space who want to get involved with this network, to host training, for us to write a case study to share your work, and support a new generation of people who want to engage with nature. So as a result of the consultation, we were able to pull out 3 key strands of activity or values that link back to that mission statement on the first slide. And that was bringing people together to support healthy and happy communities to create sustainable change. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through some of the activities that we hope to do as part of each value. And then we're going to hear from Lou, one of my colleagues who's supporting the Green Community Hub in Bradford. So next slide, please. So this value, bringing people together, it's all about community development and also some business development and support as well. So we recognise that a lot of groups that are working in this space are small organisations. You might be CICs, you might be small charities, and we want to support grassroots organisations by providing spaces for networking, resources and training sessions to give practical advice and support, some of it provided by Groundwork, but others provided by your peers and people working in the sector in your area. That was something that came out quite strongly in the consultation, that people wanted peer support. They didn't just want Groundwork telling you what to do or another organisation telling you what to do. So peer support is really important to us. And we do have funding to create this training programme, and we are looking for groups that are running training and seeing how we can work together to fund you to run some training for people in your area. We're also developing a leadership programme for green leaders. This is designed to provide a space to think, to grow and to network with your peers. Again, consultation came out that a lot of people are displaying amazing leadership in their local communities, but they might not have the resources or capacities to grow this. So next slide, please. So this value is all about how we as a sector interact with the healthcare system, and especially green social prescribing. And that's all why we're here today. So when we did the consultation, this is one of the things that people said they were struggling with the most. And whilst we can't, sort everything out, by working together, we can support organisations to better interact with the healthcare systems, which is obviously building on all the great work that's already taking place. And we just want to enhance that and support people to access that even further. So next slide, please. So this value, last but certainly not least, is around the environment. So it's why we're all here, and we want to support groups to maximise the positive climate impact they can have. And this is something that we thought maybe isn't currently mapped as much as the positive impact that these spaces have. So there's lots of new legislation and support that's coming out in the next few months. We know Natural England have just released their green infrastructure mapping tool. We're looking at how we can support groups to utilise the biodiversity net gain tool, and also there's new legislation around sustainable urban drainage system that's coming out soon. So developers are going to have to work closer with communities, and there may be funding and money that comes with that as well. But regardless, it's useful to know the direct biodiversity impact that our community gardens, allotments, green spaces are having. So we want to support groups to access this, utilise this to their advantage. And we also want to map where our green groups are so we can show what a vibrant and thriving sector we have across the whole of the north of England. So next slide, please. So I mentioned green community hubs before, and I just wanted to touch on it again before we have Lou's video. So as I said at the start, due to the massive geography involved, our network is a virtual space, but we want it to have place-based roots. And we are routing it in this way around green community hubs across the north. So we see a green community hub as a space for the community to come together in nature. So this could be a community garden, a park, an allotment, or any other green or blue space. And as part of this project, we're supporting some groups to test out some different ideas about how the green community hubs could work and support their communities. But we are looking for more groups who would like to get involved with the network and may already be a green community hub. So this could be in relation to the training programme or leadership programme that I mentioned. It could be hosting a networking session, providing resources that we can then link back to your site and say this group are doing this amazing work in this area. So in Bradford, we're working alongside Horton Community Farm, and Lou, who's our project facilitator who works at Groundwork Yorkshire, is going to give us a little tour of Horton Community Farm and show what that she's doing.
So we're here at Horton Community Farm, one of the green hubs for the Bradford area, and I'd love to show you around. Come on in. Here we've got a play area, a pizza oven, some cabins, fruit trees that are being trained. Herb garden and path. A lovely pond area here that the ducks are enjoying. It'd be good to get some plants in here to attract more wildlife. It's got these beds, these interesting looking poles section the area off, but also provide an area for a canopy to go on top to make forest schools and toddler outdoor play area accessible all year round. There's a sand pit, informal play on these rocks, raised beds. They've currently got either onion or garlic and even Brussels sprouts. Composting toilet. We can't wait to tell you more about this. More raised beds. A polytunnel. Inside the polytunnel there's lots of sacks with plants such as celery that's growing. And some fab purple sprouting broccoli. As well as chard.
So that was a quick overview of what's going on at Horton Community Farm. But thank you for listening. What we're going to be doing the next steps is we're launching the network through our website in April. There will be an event calendar, training you can access, resources you can download. We're going to be hosting some live sort of podcast chats at green spaces around the north of England. So if you're interested in getting involved with any of those things, please send me an email. I'm going to put a link to sign up to the network in the chat box, or just send me a message and we can talk about how you want to get involved. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Sam, and so concise and to the point and in time. Brilliant, thank you so much. If you'd like to connect with Sam, obviously you can use any of those methods. She'll be able to chat with you in the chat box now as well. And if you've got any questions, either pop them in the chat or save them for the end, and we'll very swiftly move on to Leah Johnson and Catherine and Charlie, who are all from the Rooted in Nature project run by Middlesbrough and Stockton Mine. So if you'd like to take over, that'd be fab. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Hi everyone, I'm Leah Johnstone. I'm the project lead on Rooted in Nature, which is a Green Social Prescribing project based in Middlesbrough and led by Middlesbrough and Stockton Mine. So there's two parts to Rooted in Nature. I lead on the project itself, but we're also lucky enough to have a research team attached to the project. So today I'll be taking a couple of minutes to start with and talking about the delivery of the project, and then Charlie and Catherine will take over and talk about the research side of the project. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we're going to get straight into it. So all of us here know how beneficial it is to get out into nature and connect to nature for our mental health. And in the aftermath of the COVID-19 restrictions, there's been a real emphasis on the provision of green social prescribing. There are several projected outcomes that Rooted in Nature is working towards. Compared to others nationally, Middlesbrough's residents face large health inequalities and an even larger inequality in access to nature. Therefore, Rooted in Nature aims to help 80 people from Middlesbrough's most disadvantaged areas who are suffering with mental health problems. Rooted in Nature provides access to nature-based therapeutic activities, which help service users build resilience to mental health problems. It gives them not only access to nature, but also the long-term skills to continue accessing nature after the project ends. The legacy of the project is important, and therefore will also provide training to 40 people on the benefits of green social prescribing. This project will run for 2 years, concluding in December 2023, and it's funded by NHS Charities Together. So to access the project, our service users must be referred through a simple referral process that can be referred by any organisation, or also they can self-refer, which has been really beneficial. So if we could have the next slide, please. So Rooted in Nature couldn't do the work that we do without the support of our amazing partners. Middlesbrough and Stockton Mines currently has 7 partners on the project, which are shown here. Rooted in Nature funds each of these partners to provide one or more nature-based therapeutic activity, and we also fund Middlesbrough Environment City to employ an engagement coordinator for the project. So the next few slides are going to look at our weekly timetable, and we're proud to say that we offer 9 different weekly sessions. So if we could have the next slide, please. So one of our weekly sessions is an indoor skills session. Next slide, please. We've got 2 allotment sessions every week. Next slide. And we've got a garden and craft session run by the Flower Patch. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we also provide 3 different walks, and each of these are designed for different abilities and allows progression through the groups. We fund Barefoot Kitchen to provide a grow to cook session, and Tees Valley Wildlife Trust to provide a volunteer opportunity to help with nature reserve maintenance. Next slide, please. Thank you. So not only do we have a full schedule of weekly activities open for our service users, we also fund Youth Focus Northeast to provide youth-led community action projects. I currently also run an after-school club at local schools, and every month we host a virtual walk led by the North York Moors National Park, which explores the national park from the comfort of our offices, and this is really beneficial for people who maybe can't get out into nature as well as they'd like to.
Okay, she's just in with a client at the moment.
Or is someone
Can I just ask that everyone make sure they're muted, because there's a little bit of background noise there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So every month we also provide monthly field trips, and recently visited RSPB Saltholme, and actually tomorrow we're going to Washington Wetlands Trust, so we're really excited for that. To further address health inequalities, we've also created 50 home activity packs for people who are housebound or don't have the confidence to access nature in one of our group settings. And these home activity packs contain 9 specially selected activities and all of the materials that are required to do them. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'll now move on to look at the outcomes of the project so far. As I've said, the project aims to support 80 people across its 2 years. And so far, a year and 3 months into the project, we've helped 167 people. And that's actually gone up by 5 in the last 3 days. I've had 5 new referrals. So we're hoping to get those onto the project very soon. Meaning that we've met 208% of our target already. I understand this slide is quite wordy, so I'll give you a quick overview of some of our other outcomes. In January, 16 currently active service users were asked a series of questions. Of these 16 people, 85% said that they'd felt an increase in confidence and self-esteem through Rooted in Nature. 100% said they had both met and formed new friendships through Rooted in Nature. 75% said that they had felt an improvement in their mood. And finally, of those who had experienced a change in the number of times they'd visited their doctors, 80% of them said it was a positive change. So next slide, please. And as Sarah said, these slides will be available afterwards, so you can have sort of a more detailed look through those should you wish to. So in the next 9 months of the project, we have 2 new sessions starting, and we aim to provide at least 5 volunteer opportunities to help create legacy for the project. We're also hoping to secure funding to continue with the project further. So next slide, please. So I just want to finally say thank you everyone for listening to my whistle-stop tour of Rooted in Nature. My contact details are here if you wish to get in touch, and I'll also pop them in the in the chat after I finished. And so I'm now going to hand over to our researchers, Charlie and Catherine. Thank you again.
Thanks, Leah. Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm one of the academics on the research side of the project. The research side is actually funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, and it began in January 22, and it's been extended to May 23. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you can see, we have a broad range of representation across the research team, as well as our charity, community and local authority partners. So the academics are on the left there and our community partners on the right. We also have 2 young advisors who live locally and help us improve the accessibility, quality and relevance of the research, and they're certainly not shy. And we have multiple other partners who aren't named here, but contribute to our advisory group meetings, which is really useful. Next slide, please. Thank you. The aim of the study is to understand what's needed to scale up a nature-based program currently offered to young people in Middlesbrough with the overall aim of reducing health inequalities. So to do this, we're focusing on the Rooted in Nature program that Leah's just explained to you. Next slide. So in the face of complex social adversities that we know result in health inequalities, the vision for our study is to work with young people and community partners to ultimately create a really robust and equitable methodology so that everyone feels connected to it, inspired by it, and confident about connecting with their communities. Next slide, please. Our participants are young people between 11 and 24 years old engaged in the Rooted in Nature program, in addition to the nature-based practitioners that deliver the program activities, as well as a wide variety of key stakeholders like link workers, GPs, community organisations, clinical commissioning groups, integrated care partnerships, health and wellbeing boards. It's really diverse and broad. Next slide, please. So this is the design of the study. There's 3 main steps. It's all underpinned by a community development approach, which is really important to us and to our community partners and lines up our ethos so that everyone's equally involved. And an important part of the study design is our advisory group, which consists of representation from the stakeholder groups just mentioned, so that they can help to guide the research and make it better and make sure that our priorities are in the right places for the right people. So there's 3 interconnected stages. Part 1 has 3 elements. I'm one of them. I'm the embedded researcher, so I spend time in Middlesbrough on the activities, seeing what's going on the ground and building relationships, which I think is probably my favourite part of this whole study. We're also beginning to invite young people to take part in photo elicitation. This is where they take photos of things they enjoy on their activities, and that will then guide their interviews with us afterwards. And if you're interested in this really creative method of evaluation, there's a free workshop on how to use it in Middlesbrough and Stockton Mind on the 28th of this month, delivered by our colleague, Claire Woolhouse, and I'll remind you about that on the last slide, but really interesting stuff. We've also invited nature-based practitioners to do a walking interview about what they love about Rooted in Nature and what some of the challenges to scaling up might be. In part 2, we're focusing on improving our understanding about the ingredients of a successful nature-based program. And to do that, we've gathered data about nature-based providers and activities across the North East and North Cumbria. And I've created a map of those community links, and I'll show you that on one of the following slides. There's also a brief online survey looking at how nature-based programs work and what obstacles people might encounter while delivering them. The findings from this will help us identify ways to improve what already exists, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And the survey is still open, so if you'd like to take part, the link will be on the last page, and you'll receive a £10 shopping voucher, and thanks, because another part of the study is making sure and being really committed to ensuring that people are paid for their time and their input. In part 3, we ran a creative workshop last September with people involved in nature-based programs from across the region, gathering to discuss the sector together. So that's how this study is working. And you can see on the right there who we have involved so far. The walking interviews are now up to 7, I think. Next slide, please. So our outputs, or at least the ones we planned, were 2 accessible and publicly available reports on scaling up, a database of green social prescribing providers in map format, and a co-produced substantial funding application, which Catherine will tell you more about shortly. But there was other outputs that have cropped up in the meantime, which I'll also tell you about. Next slide. Thank you. So for the walking interviews, they've been really positively received by our practitioners, and you can see their opinions at the top of the slide there. And our preliminary findings can be seen in the grid, obviously subject to change and it's ongoing. But the main barriers we found was funding, obviously a huge barrier, and it might explain some of the others, such as lack of access to activities through transport and equipment costs, and the lack of progression for both practitioners and participants due to the underfunded nature-based service sector. Recommendations have included green social prescribing and investment in green social prescribing and nature services more generally, a well-developed exit strategy from the programme, a central community hub for green social prescribing. Next slide, please. Those findings were somewhat echoed in our survey preliminary findings as well. So stakeholders noted that where they did offer nature-based interventions, these were usually short-term, and I believe that's probably could be attributed to the fact they also said that they relied on external grants to offer those programs, and we all know how short-term and transient that funding can be. So barriers again were funding, workload, and workforce. Next slide, please. Thanks. This is the map I've designed based on our network, which has been built through the survey, the workshop, word of mouth, walking interviews, furious Googling, and talking to other people who had also produced maps and having a little bit of comparing the maps. And I'd also like to thank Esther at Actual England, as she very kindly introduced me to map building on Google Maps, and it's been really intuitive and useful. The map, as you can see from the key, is split into organisations, mental health green activities, general green activities, subsidized and paid for activities, and finally closed organizations. It took me about 2 months to transfer all the data I'd found from an Excel spreadsheet to this map. And as you can see, in that short period of time, there is 3 black crosses on the map where organizations have closed. So it really highlights the high turnover of organizations in this sector. And I'm really hoping this map can be of help to a multitude of people, maybe GPs, social prescribers, community groups, and especially individuals looking to self-refer as well. Next slide, please. The creative workshop was really insightful, more than we could have hoped for, and provided an opportunity for stakeholders to discuss the best ways to work together and create a plan on how we can take action to overcome challenges. And we gained so much rich data from this, I can't possibly tell you it all now, but we did write it up into a blog, and I put a link to that blog on the last slide. Next slide, please. Throughout the event, there was a live minute taker recording the ideas of the stakeholders in attendance through visual minutes, and this is what came out at the end. It was a great talking point, and it assisted different organisations in networking as they perused the minutes throughout the morning. And it's just a really nice way to mark all of those great ideas creatively. Okay, next slide. Thank you. These are 2 outputs we didn't expect, but were very welcome. And they focus on what effective community engagement looks like. So I've already mentioned our creative workshop blog, but Greta from VONNE also asked and invited us to create a blog illustrating the helpful suggestions in the NIHR Community Engagement Toolkit resource. This toolkit advises on how best researchers can engage with the community sector and is very needed. So the Rooted in Nature programme and project teams collaborated to design a blog illustrating how we put these toolkit principles into practice throughout Rooted in Nature. It's almost finished, and we're going to email it to our network shortly. If you'd like to join that network, again, just email us, and that'll be a reminder on the last slide about that. Next slide, please. Catherine's going to tell you a little bit more about what comes next.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'll be very quick. I just wanted to mention that over the next 2 months, I'm going to be looking for nature-based organisations and groups across our region, as well as individual practitioners who have a track record of engaging children and young people in nature-based activities and who are ready to be part of stage 2 of Rooted in Nature, which is going to be a substantial research project with multiple partners across the region. So please do get in touch with me if this is something you'd like to be involved with. Thank you. Next slide, please.
And that's everything from us. So just a reminder, on the left there, you can see the blog, the map, and the survey. Please do have a go at the survey if you have time. And we do like to hear from you, and a £10 shopping voucher never hurts. And if you're interested in the opportunities on the right-hand side, just send us an email and you can see them at the bottom of the slide there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leah and Catherine. One quick question that actually just came to mind, Catherine, when you're talking about the region, can we just clarify the
Northeast North Cumbria.
Northeast North Cumbria, right. So your project is obviously we've got a mixture of partners here and attendees from across Yorkshire as well, but that work is focused on Northeast and North Cumbria, right? Great, okay. Just thought we better clarify that. Brilliant, thank you so much, and we're still doing well for time, so brilliant, thank you. I'd like to introduce our third and final speaker, and then we'll have a bit of time for general chat and questions after that. So hi to Anthony Hurd, and take it away, Anthony.
Excellent, thank you, Sarah. So yeah, morning everyone, I'm Anthony and I'm Programme Manager for the Humber and North Yorkshire Green Social Prescribing Test and Learn site. We're delivering the programme on behalf of the Humber and North Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership, but I actually sit with Hey Smile Foundation, which is a small charity in Hull. And what I wanted to do is just take you through one of the pieces of work that we've been doing to follow individuals on their green social prescribing journey. And we've got some preliminary results which I'll go over. So if I can have the next slide, please. So in order to carry out this piece of work, we wanted to identify a cohort of individuals. We worked with our social prescribing and other services across the region, and really kind of thought about who was presenting at social prescribing and who could benefit from community-based outdoor and in-nature activities. So we came up with a cohort criteria of individuals aged over 18, those experiencing mild to moderate mental health needs. So this could be mild to moderate anxiety, mild to moderate depression and low mood, and things like loneliness and isolation. Sort of based on the social prescribing ethos of what matters to me, individuals would be motivated and interested in engaging in an activity. And we did have an exclusion criteria as well. So we partnered with services across the region, so this is Humber and North Yorkshire, to follow those individuals from accessing the service to 3 months of green social prescribing activity, or when the activity ended if it was time limited. Can I have the next slide, please? So these are all the different organisations that we've been working with. They're predominantly social prescribing services, but very different in how they're delivered. So some are delivered through the voluntary sector, some through NHS trusts. We've also worked with Navigo, which is a community interest company that delivers the mental health services in North East Lincolnshire. And in Hull, the Connect Well social prescribing service through Forum partnered with Hull and East Yorkshire Mind to develop a referral route from Mind services into community-based green and outdoor activities. Next slide, please. So to get the data that we wanted, we invested in staff time through all those different organisations. And this allowed the services to identify individuals accessing their service that fitted that criteria, recruit them to take part in the piece of work, gather demographic data on the individual, so we understood who is accessing green social prescribing, gather data on referral route and reason, so we could understand how and why they were accessing green social prescribing. And then we used 2 outcome measures. And as I said, we used these before the activity started and at 3 months, or when the activity ended if it was time limited. We used ONS4, which is 4 questions to measure general well-being, as this was already being widely used across the region and through different services. And it was also recommended through the National Green Social Prescribing Evaluation Team. And then we wanted a more clinical mental health measure. So we used the Hospital Anxiety and Depression Scale, or HADS, which is 7 questions each on anxiety and depression, and was found to be the sort of most suitable to be administered in that social prescribing setting. We also gathered data on what activity was accessed, how frequently people engaged with the activity, and for how long as well. And we've been partnered with the University of York, so they set up the data collection process. So all those different organisations were feeding data in the same way through to the central hub at the university. And they've been evaluating and interpreting the data received. So all data is now in. We kind of closed this process at the end of February, and the university are currently sort of cleaning the data and looking at it in a closer detail so we can make some conclusions from it. So next slide, please. So we had 224 people who took part in the cohort across the region. We know that 59% of them were female. 87% of them were aged between 18 and 64, so of working age. 92% who took part were white British. 45% of participants live in the top 20% most deprived areas in the UK. And 44% of participants were either unemployed or unable to work due to ill health or disability. Of those 224 people, 22% of participants didn't complete the after survey. So that's the outcome measures administered after the activity ended. And there were various reasons for this, including change in circumstances. So individuals might have found employment, or they might have moved. Individuals disengaged with all services, so not just the Green Social Prescribing activity, but the services that they were being supported by, or the individual had a deterioration in their health, both mental and physical. Next slide, please. So we got 173 completed after surveys. And from this, we've learned that the most popular activity was gardening. So 38% of those individuals went into a gardening activity, but there was a wide range of different types of activity that people went into. And again, this kind of goes back to that what matters to me conversation through social prescribing. So they were able to connect people with different activities. So green exercise, care farming, nature connection, conservation activities, bushcraft and green woodwork, all sorts of things. And when it comes to the outcome measures, so the figures we've got here are percentages of those that showed any improvement in their before and after score. So we've got between 60 and 70% of people in both ONS4 and the Hospital Anxiety and Depression Scale showing an improvement. So this is really interesting, and the university are looking closer at this, particularly with the HADS, because it's a bigger subscale, to look at things like, does the activity that they took part in make a difference? Does the frequency of the activity make a difference? So that work is all being done now. So next slide. Alongside this sort of quantitative data, we also have gathered case studies as well to get that bigger picture on the impact of green social prescribing on these individuals accessing different services. So here's just a few quotes. So, you know, it's more therapeutic doing things outside. It's increased my confidence. It's more than gardening. It's the social aspect of it and not feeling isolated, and having a sense of purpose as well. Next slide. Yeah, so, you know, one individual did horse assisted therapy. You know, being with the horses made them feel closer to nature, calmer, and has built their confidence and assertiveness. And this, you know, really powerful quote. Sometimes there would be days where I get up and think, what's the point? And now I get up and I look forward to the day. So supported by the National Academy of Social Prescribing and Natural England, we have created a video to sort of show the journey of Christine and how she's been supported by her social prescribing link worker at York CVS and TCV, who run activities in a local park. So we go to the next slide and play the video.
Never done gardening in my life. Does be good when you get out in fresh air. Does be good though, doesn't it? Getting out in fresh air. I love it.
We have a project in the park to enable people to access fresh air, do a bit of gardening, socialise. It's just good to plant things and see them grow, feed the birds, and being closer to nature, helping you to feel good.
So I met Christine October last year. She's chatty and she loves meeting people. Lockdown really took that away from her. She'd mentioned that she does help do a little bit of a friends and a neighbours gardening around the house and things. With there being a local park that runs gardening groups, it was a perfect solution to get her out and meeting new people.
I lost my husband 7 years ago, so yeah, I was a carer as well as wife. So there's only me on my own, toxic walls. I was happy to get out, get among people. I met a lot of friends working here.
Christine's mental health is lifted completely from, she wasn't really going out at all, and whereas now she's got that purpose, building that confidence of getting back outside can be massive for someone's mental health. And just the fresh air, isn't it? It just helps everyone, I'd say.
I can't wait to get here on a Thursday. Go to bed on a night and I think, oh, I can't wait to get here on a Thursday. So I love it.
Excellent. Let me just go to the next slide. Brilliant. So yeah, it's a really nice little story from Christine and how accessing social prescribing and being connected to TCV has supported her and her well-being. We have taken a lot of other learning from this process as well. So, you know, the social prescribing and other services that we've worked with have made new connections with community-based groups. And we've also taken a lot of learning about the practicalities sort of on the ground of connecting people to outdoor and in nature activities. Just in terms of the photos, there's just some fantastic groups that have supported this piece of work. So Raincliffe Wood Community Enterprise in Scarborough, Rooted in Hull, St Nick's in York, Carers Plus Yorkshire in North Yorkshire, and York Bike Bells in York as well. And my email address is there if people do want to connect or want to know any more about the work that we've been doing. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anthony. I agree with the comment in the chat from Rachel. I've seen that film before, but it is just, you know, it makes me smile too, you know, just the difference that it can make, especially post-pandemic, when people were really feeling isolated. Thanks very much for everybody's presentations, really interesting and kind of lots to talk about there. One thing I noticed was that Rachel did post a question in the chat, which I do believe a couple of people, both Dave and I think Leah have responded to, but I did wonder if any of our speakers or any of the other panel members would like to come in around Rachel's question, which was about are people seeing and capturing improvements in physical health and well-being as well as mental health and well-being, because Rachel's coming from that sort of social prescribing and active travel perspective. So I'm just wondering who we might pick on. Is there any of our speakers, if you could maybe just, sorry Tom, stop sharing the screen for us for a few minutes, and then it's easier to see where people have hands up. Thank you very much, that's brilliant. Was there any of our panelists or speakers that wanted to come in on that? Anthony, brilliant, thank you very much.
Sorry, I couldn't work out how to raise my hand virtually. So I think someone mentioned it in the comments. So the test and learn sites have had a focus on mental ill health, and that's been our focus. But definitely through sort of case studies and through our funded projects, so we funded projects in the community to deliver activities as well. Improvements in physical health do come out in some of the case studies. So we haven't got a sort of formal measure of improvements to physical health, but we do have individuals who talk about losing weight, you know, learning from their community garden activities and improving their diet. Individuals with diabetes who are using, you know, walking groups and things like that are sort of supporting their health as well. So I'm afraid not in any formal way, but it does come through in lots of the case studies that we're gathering.
Brilliant, thank you, Anthony. If there are no more hands up around that, do feel free, if you've got any burning questions, to pop them in the chat. I had a couple of things I wanted
just to say, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just put in Sarah? I think Catherine had her hand up there.
Oh, did she? Apologies. I flicked over from one screen to another. Catherine.
Hi, just on physical outcomes. So the Rooted in Nature research project is an exploratory pilot study using qualitative methods or mixed methods. We have a survey as well. So unless participants involved in the qualitative elements of the research study have reported specifically physical improvements, then we haven't considered it at this stage of the study, but we will be taking it into account in stage 2.
Fantastic. Sorry, thank you very much. Whilst we're sort of waiting to see if anyone from the audience has any further questions, was that a hand, Helen, that nearly went up there or not? No, I think it was just no. Okay. I noted down a couple of things, and I was wondering whether we could mention, I think evaluation is something that obviously all of the projects kind of touched on the ways in which they were evaluating, but I think one of the things I wanted to ask maybe Dave, I think Dave Solly, if you can, is just around I'm just aware that it's very difficult, and a lot of small green social prescribers or nature-based projects sometimes struggle to know what mechanism to use. And obviously Anthony talked a bit about ONS4, which is something that it's a measure that I've actually suggested to a number of small providers who've come to me. It depends on kind of what the focus is really, but I was just wondering whether you could mention anything about the kind of the NASP evidence gathering work that's been happening, or whether there's anything, is there anything at a national level around evaluation techniques or measures that would be useful for any of the local projects or providers to have a look at, please?
Yeah, so good. Hello, everybody. Just as a bit of context, I'm with the Academy as the national lead for the natural environment, and my particular connection with Green Social Prescribing is point of contact with the national pilot programs, of which Anthony's team is one of them. So yeah, I think we all recognise that while Green Social Prescribing activity has been happening for many, many years, the actual connecting it with the systems is part of the challenge that the pilots are attempting to look at. And data and a mutual understanding is something that is really important to develop. There's ONS4 at the moment is the sort of best option for recording as far as we're aware at present, but there's hopefully more coming out of the pilot learning on options to record and measure going forward. It is an area that we recognise much more needs to be done on, and it's about sort of enabling the system to understand what providers can report on, and also providers understand what the system needs back in return. So for now, I would say watch for more to come from the learning from the pilots as that's all being gathered together. We know that some have done great work in exploring what's possible, and the evaluation learning will continue to be spread over the months ahead, with the main report anticipated sort of June, July onwards. Watch for more on that going forward.
Thanks, Dave. And I'm not sure whether you wanted to just mention the as a part of that work, the Green Social Prescribing Toolkit that isn't quite ready at the moment, but is coming.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. That's Sarah. That's a good prompt, actually, because that will be a gathering together of loads of learning from all the different pilot projects, plus the research that has also captured what's happening already in in terms of delivery beyond the pilot sites as well. Someone has had the unenviable task of condensing that all down into a toolkit of information that's being pulled together at present, and we're looking forward in the not too distant future to making that available. Details of that are of precisely where that will be hosted and when that will be available still to follow, but I'll put in chat an email address for our colleagues in NHS if you want to sort of register interest in getting more on the outcomes of the programme. Contact them and ask to be on their list of people they'll contact.
Brilliant, thanks, Dave. And I should say, if any of the speakers or panelists have anything they would like circulating, I'll be sending out a follow-up email with the slides. So if there are any important links or email addresses, please just send them through to me today and I'll get them out on that list. But most, I think, are already on the slides, so you should receive the slide deck. We've had another question pop into the chat from Mandy. I totally get where you're coming from, Mandy. So Mandy's asking about, will there be an opportunity for small community-based projects to apply for funding through Green Social Prescribing in the future? We get asked a lot to provide activities via social prescribing link workers, but there's never any money attached to providing the support, which doesn't work for us. And I think you're based in the kind of, is it Meadowell connected? Is that kind of Newcastle area, Mandy? Is that right? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just waiting to see when.
No, North Shields.
Oh, North Shields.
Newcastle.
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Maybe it might be worth me saying to start with that. I do a monthly social prescribing information session as part of the Thriving Communities excuse me, thriving communities delivery work. And within it, we talk a little bit about funding, because it's about understanding and visualizing the changes in the health and care system as well. So if it's something that you're interested in, it might be worth joining one of those. And I did actually record the most recent one I did, so I think we're planning to put it on our website as a resource. But essentially, the way that the health and care system is changing, it means that moving forward, there is going to be more emphasis on the integrated care board making decisions about what health inequalities, what needs need to be focused on in each of the integrated care system areas, and yours would be North East and North Cumbria. And then the partnership and subgroups that sit under it, that are groups, often they're all voluntary sector groups that support particular communities of interest, are coming together right now. And I can connect you into colleagues, if you're not already connected to them, who are working on that programme. It's our VCSE partnership programme that VONNE runs. And that way, people working with specific communities are coming together, learning about what each other does, and how potentially, as the money comes down the line in order to commission work from the NHS, they can kind of work together in collaboration to maybe access funding, and it be sort of divided between a number of organisations, because some of the mechanisms in the past through kind of clinical commissioning groups have often excluded smaller groups, just because they haven't had perhaps the governance and the structures and the, all the kind of they haven't been able to jump through all the hoops that have been needed. But hopefully that is kind of changing, and the way that work is going to be commissioned in the future is changing. But that's kind of starting to happen now, as the integrated care boards and partnerships are sort of bedding in and pulling together their strategies and things. But if you'd like to drop me an email, I'll put my email address in the chat, and I'll connect you up with my colleagues at VONNE who are working on that to see how that would support you. But the other thing I wanted to do was maybe just ask Anthony. Obviously, part of the work that you were doing in Humber and North Yorkshire, as most of the pilots were, was around that kind of those issues around sustainability, and how that might be, how we can sort of remove those barriers moving forward. I don't know if you've got any amazing ideas or whatever, but I just wondered if you fancied coming in for a second.
Brilliant. So yeah, part of our test and learn program was to fund groups. So we did fund groups across the region to deliver activities, and have worked with them to build connections with different pathways. But it is a really, tricky problem. I totally understand, and we're taking a lot of learning away from our own grants program, and kind of how that was run, and how we set up the application process, and kind of what we asked of groups and things like that. And strategically here in Humber and North Yorkshire, the programme has sat underneath the VCSE collaborative within the integrated care system. So we have kind of had that link into that part of the system, which is looking at how to better connect the voluntary sector with the healthcare, but also support the voluntary sector to do that. But I think Sarah covered a lot there, and I think as the integrated care systems move forward, hopefully there'll be more opportunity for funding different sizes of groups. And we did make sure that funding was available for both grassroots groups, but also those sort of bigger tried and tested organisations as well.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, I think that was it was really clear during your process, and I think you did a really good job in making sure that funding was spread in a representative way and fairly. So that's useful. I do think, as we suspected when the pilot started, we knew that funding would be a barrier. I don't know if you want to say anything more, Dave, or not, but I think the knowledge that's been gained from all of the pilot work, and I think we've got Sarah here, who has been supporting both of the Yorkshire pilots, but particularly can talk about the South Yorkshire pilot as well. I don't know whether you've got anything to add, Sarah.
Sarah, perhaps shall I come in first?
Okay,
yes, yeah, feel free to.
Yeah. No, just very quickly to say that Anthony and colleagues out in the other pilot sites have obviously explored funding options and identified the strengths and challenges around those, and there'll be more learning coming out in the information that comes from the pilots as that's all drawn together into the toolkit. Some of them have explored that sustainable resourcing further, and it's obviously an area that we all want to consider further going forward. The national partners in the programme are remaining in dialogue, even though the pilot programme is coming towards its end at the end of March. And one of the areas that will be of interest to us will be that what sustainable resourcing looks like in the future.
Brilliant, that's great, thanks. And
Sarah? Just add Sarah, I mean, what's happening with the pilots is, there's a real commitment to keep going with the learning from it, working together. We've built, there's a lot of knowledge that's come together. So on both pilots, there's a commitment for the steering groups still to meet up. So although the Treasury funding is coming to an end, I think, the momentum is definitely in there, and we're wanting to build from what we've learned on, on both pilots. So, what's really great is it just feels like just we need to keep going and get that learning out and keep working together, and I feel like on both pilots it's been a sort of great team effort and some really fantastic learnings coming out of it. So yeah, we're still all here.
Brilliant, and I think that's a key point, Sarah, that sometimes although for things like the pilots, the funding comes to an end, the relationships that are developed and the partnerships will remain, and it will often, the infrastructure in that area will be improved in terms of the sort of longer term because of that, and those partners are much more likely to then bid for money collectively and work together in the future. So that's been a really positive outcome from those areas. If we haven't got any, Sharona, have you got a question?
Yes. So I'm working with children and young people social prescribing in York and Pocklington, and I'm just wondering about the pilots. I know that the North East and Cumbria are doing quite a lot for young people. Project or, I'm just wondering really about young people and what can be offered to them through Green Social Prescribing in the future specifically.
Well, I mean, do you want to come in on this, either Leah or Catherine or Charlie? Obviously, the Rooted in Nature programme is specifically about working with young people, but then I'll give you an opportunity, and then maybe if not, I'm just thinking any of my colleagues that are in the Yorkshire and Humber area that are kind of closer, maybe to that geographical area that Sharona's working in.
Hi, Sharona. I'll go first. Currently, the Rooted in Nature research project doesn't have enough data to give you a definitive answer, but we're going to continue over the next few weeks, and then hopefully we'll have something more substantial to be able to report on your question.
Okay. In terms of I mean, I have some individual connections with organisations within the Yorkshire and Humber patch that are doing a lot of work around children and young people's social prescribing. And in actual fact, Sharona, if you drop me an email, we did last July, we did a really interesting webinar, which was all around children and young people's social prescribing generally. So not specifically green social prescribing for children and young people, but all types of social prescribing children and young people. But there was elements of green social prescribing within that, and it was recorded and it's on our website. So if you'd be interesting, it might be an interesting watch back for you. So if you want to drop me an email, I'll pop my email in the chat again and I can direct you to that. And there were examples from North East, North Cumbria and Yorkshire of different types of projects and how they were making it work, different models in different areas, and there could potentially be some useful connections and people you could network with that were speakers on that webinar, if that would help.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Yeah, I have spoken to Anthony before.
I'm really sorry. I don't know.
I think, you know, there is a lot going on in York, but I'm thinking about, yeah, thank you. That's great, VONNE.
Sorry, yeah, I think you were breaking up a little bit for me there, but I don't know whether that was just me. Well, I'm just noticing we're at our sort of time, so maybe if I could just ask my colleague Tom if he could just share the final slide, just to make sure you've got our contact details. Again, as I said, I'm just going to pop my email address in the chat again in case anyone would like to get in touch for any of the reasons we've discussed. And also, if you would like to follow us on Twitter, we have our Thriving Communities, and there's a Thriving Communities email address there, but we also have a VONNE Health and Wellbeing Twitter channel, which we're trying to grow the following for, which is at VONNE_HWB. So if you'd like to know more and you'd like to kind of keep in the loop more with what's happening around social prescribing generally and green social prescribing, then do follow us on Twitter at VONNE_HWB. And in the meantime, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you to all our speakers who were fantastic and really kind of concise and kept everything on time, which was brilliant, and gave us a good amount of time for questions. And a lot of them have put their details in the chat. So if you do want to speak to any of them after the event, I'm sure they'd be really happy to hear from you. So thank you very much. Hope you've all enjoyed it, and speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.